Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. I'm Carl Dambacker. I'm the co-founder of Gold Rush News. On behalf of our sponsors, Blue Mountain Mineral, Nerdo Boy, TC Facts, we'd like to welcome you. Let's start off with the flag salute, and then we'll get right into it, all right? Please join me with Carl leading the flag. Salute. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Again, I'm Carl Dambacker. I'd like to welcome you to Save Our Source, Spend on Storage, our second in the series of SOS. Save Our Source is based on the need of recognizing what we have and how we need to preserve that. Spend on Storage is what we're going to be confronting on the November 4th election. This is probably one of the most important campaign periods in my lifetime, in ours, because if we don't make the right decisions November 4th, Tuolumne County needs to have strong leadership. So what I'd like to do now is look at the panelists. I'm going to start off with introducing Carl Rutherford. He is our supervisor of the 5th District. Melinda Fleming, second panelist. She's the executive director of TUD. Tom Trott like a horse, general manager, Twain Harte Community Services. Great. Thank you for being here, everybody. Give yourself a big hand, everybody, for making it down here. I appreciate it. So now I'd like to turn this over to, and then we have our timer, Jerry. Jerry, say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Jerry's going to be running the lights. You need to pay attention to your lights. As a candidate, you need to pay attention to the time limits that Carl's going to go over with you. I think that's about it. We're going to try and stay on schedule if we could, please. And that's it. Carl?
Sure. Thank you, Carl. There's an echo in here. First of all, I think you all ought to be commended in coming out. The candidates for throwing their name in the hat. It's not easy to run for office, public office, and it's certainly it's a challenge to serve. And you all ought to be very proud of yourselves, and we ought to be very thankful for that. Also, for all the people that are here as observers, you're to be commended as well. Civic interest is very important to government, and understanding the candidates, understanding the issues, and then voting intelligently is very important to the governmental process. So thank you all for being here. Before I get into the forum rules, I'd like to read an email from one of the candidates, Delbert Rotelli. He sent this earlier today. He says, "I will be unable to attend candidates night due to a slight blood condition that requires temporary treatment. Anyone who has a question about TUD may call me at home, and I have his phone number if anybody wants it. I'll read it now, but you can get it from me later. 532-5617. That's 532-5617. I will be out Monday campaigning door to door. Again, I am sorry I could not meet with you tonight. Hope to hear from you. Thank you, Delbert." So we're sorry that Delbert couldn't be here. We do have 10 candidates here, 5 for each of the races. There are 2 races for TUD board. One is a race for a 2-year seat, and the other is a race for 2 4-year seats. So there are 3 seats up for election, 1 2-year seat and 1 4-year seat. Our first 5 candidates are competing for the 2-year seat. Our last 5 candidates are competing for the 2 4-year seats, and we will do them in that order. Forum rules. The forum will be run in accordance with the following rules. The presentation will be conducted in a professional and polite manner. Deviation from this rule could result in a candidate being removed from the forum. This would be at the discretion of the debate moderator. 2, each candidate will be allowed a 2-minute opening statement. You will individually get introduced. You'll go to the podium. You'll be given 2 minutes for an opening statement. Then each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes to answer each question. We will rotate who asks the questions with each candidate. Each candidate will get 3 questions. The first question will come from the panelists. The second question will come from the audience, and we will have a roving mic. And the third question will come from our fishbowl, which are questions that have been given to the organizers of the event And again, you will get 2 minutes to answer each question. At the end, after we have asked questions of all the candidates, in the reverse order by race, that is, by the competitive race for the seats, but in the reverse order, you will be given 2 minutes to close. So the first person that comes up to get interviewed will be the last person that gets to make their closing comments, okay? And each person will get 2 minutes for a closing statement at the end. Timing will be with a 3-light system: green light, yellow for 30 seconds remaining, and red when the time is up. When you see the red light, please end that sentence, and that's the end of your comments, your answers. Candidates will not be allowed to attack or impugn other candidates. The purpose of this forum is to explore the ideas each candidate has in becoming a board member and how they plan to affect operations of TUD. Do any of the candidates have any questions about the rules of engagement? Okay, then we'll start. I am the first questioner, and my first... Part?
Jerry, do you have anything you need to say?
The green light will go on when you're into a 1 minute. At a minute and a half, the yellow light will also signify you have 30 seconds left. In exactly 2 minutes, the red light goes on and you will stop. Or we'll stand up and clap like crazy.
Okay, okay. So we have a little audience participation going there. Okay, anybody before we get started? Okay, the first candidate for the 2-year term seat is Mr. Michael Cummings. And Michael, I'm going to ask you to pick a number. In all fairness, I have 4 questions and I have 4 candidates that I'm going to ask. So pick a 1-digit whole number between 1 and 4.
3.
Okay. My question to you is, one of the greatest responsibilities that you will have in the early days of your officeship, should you be elected, will be to select a new general manager at TUD. Would you please tell us what you think are the important attributes that you will be looking for in that selection process if you are elected, and what you think is important to that selection process?
Well, I believe the general manager should be someone who's well experienced in the same type of business that TUD operates. First of all, they need to have, I believe, a college degree that gives them the ability to be able to think and on a large capacity scale. They have experience in a background that gives them in areas of finance where they can look at the books and see where the discrepancies are, where they need to balance the books, where the debts are, how they're going to raise funds to cover those debts. And then they need to also know the technical areas. They need to know how water flows. They need to know how the water is transported through the ditches, through the rivers, through the canals, and through water and well sources. So they need to know both technical, and they need to know administrative, and they need to know how to function as a manager in overseeing personnel, how to keep the morale high with the personnel, also to be able to delegate their work and not try to take it on all themselves and bury themselves in a mountain of work, but to be able to delegate and be able to properly choose the proper person to delegate that work to, and be able to, that person be able to handle the job. So if I was elected, that's what I would look at, is an all-around experience and the qualifications of that person.
Okay. The head of the panel already screwed up, okay? So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to make an opening statement. I forgot to do that. I'm sorry.
Well, the theme of my campaign is conservation and growth. And you've probably seen my sign out on the road. I'd like to say a moment to the voter. The voter has 11 candidates to choose from in this race for the 3 TUD board positions. And it will be wise for each voter to study and know the background of each candidate, the qualifications, and vote to provide TUD board a balanced variety of experience. My experience is mostly in technical area, along with some in administrative area. I was born and raised in Northern California on a cattle ranch and worked summers in the hay fields. I attended Cal Poly State University, where I got a Bachelor of Science degree in mechanical engineering, while working summers in the Forest Service doing timber stand improvement projects and firefighting. After working over 20 years in the San Francisco Bay Area doing research, design, and development in the engineering field, I moved to Sonora and to design and construction of residential real estate for several years. I've served on the board of directors in both the Bay Area and Sonora, being mainly responsible for overseeing and accounting and the funding of the operations. Presently, I do fundraising for Gideon's International. At the present time, I'm an investor holding an active general contractor license to service my rentals. I presently do fundraising for the also trade on the futures market with the cattle. My desire is to share my variety of experience on the TUD board to help our community grow and meet the increasing water demands without it becoming highly expensive to the user.
Okay. Do we have a question from the audience? No question from the audience. Then we're going to have a question.
Oh, wait a minute, we have one here, Carl.
Okay.
Clint?
I'm reading your paper that you were supplied in the back, and you said TUD must grow to meet future demands. How would you want to grow TUD?
Well, my idea is that we need to have more water reserves. And we have lakes at lower elevations. I believe we need to have water reserves at higher elevations. I know when I was driving up the Reno Air Races a couple of weeks ago, I enjoyed driving over 88. I see the lakes up there on the high elevations like practically full. Down here, they're almost empty. So I would think that putting lakes at the higher elevation, do a step-down lake series so that we can reuse water from one lake to the next to generate electricity through turbines, and therefore have a multi-use of water for electricity as well as preserving the water and saving it from evaporation in the higher, in the lower elevations at higher temperatures. So therefore, I believe that having a series of lakes is the one thing. Another way is I think we need to step up having wells with residences and have some sort of a program that if a person invests in a well, they can also sell some of their well water through TUD and help pay and fund their expense. So I think having more wells as well as lake reserves is going to be a big factor.
Okay. And the last question for Mr. Cummings. We recently were asked by TUD to conserve 50%, and the county did a superb job. TUD customers did a superb job in meeting that goal. They actually conserved 51%. As a result of that, approximately 56% of the revenues were lost for TUD over a normal year. How would you propose to close that gap?
Well, I believe the TUD has to have three areas of budgeting. One is the basic operations of TUD's staff. So I think that needs to be a basic charge to the TUD customer to cover that TUD operation. Now, where it comes to water, whether there's increased use or a lesser use, it should be that the funds for the amount of water used would go up and down, of course, according to the amount of water that is used by the user. So therefore, one area stays constant. The other area is as a person uses less water, the cost goes down, but the cost of TUD should go down too because they're not having to process as much water. And the third area I think there needs to be is an area for investment to expand TUD's operation through investor monies, through selling probably of utility bonds, and then also with the area where the TUD is struggling with the staff having their proper retirement funds, have some sort of a retirement fund that the staff can invest in and not just be a blanket cost to TUD.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. And Tom Trott will introduce our next candidate. You will have an opportunity for a 2-minute close at the end. Thank you.
For your attention.
All right, the next two-year candidate is Mr. David Evans. And Mr. Evans, why don't you start with your 2-minute opening statement?
I'll try. First off, hello to everyone. Hello. Let me first say thank you to the sponsors for this forum. I am David Evans. I am a no conflict of interest candidate. I do not accept campaign money from special interest. Excuse me. I am running for the two-year TUD board seat. My background. My family and I moved to Sonora close to 20 years ago. I'm a retired business owner. As a graduate of the University of Maryland, I have a Bachelor's of Science degree. I am not an accountant, but I have courses in accounting and business management. I also worked in the field of engineering technology involving thin films. My TUD concerns. In conversation with a number of TUD customers, I have concluded the following. Water storage is a real concern. But then there's the question of how to pay for it. Sadly, here is sadly, there's a history of drought for this area. Now is the time to be committed. I've stated previously a broad approach involving two plans. Plan A is the lines dam approach. The cost of raising lines I understand to be $70 million and counting. However, I recently was informed by a former TUD board member that a previous board voted to discontinue the process of raising lines. Apparently, as I understand, a timeline with water available would not allow lines to fill. This issue requires more study. Therefore, Plan B approach I call mini water storage is the way forward. Dredging of Phoenix Lake to raise capacity is an immediate necessity. Then there's a metallic reservoir project, helps even though it is a small footprint. In addition, I hope that we can add the Twain Harte project. Other small storage areas may be identified.
The next question is, in your opinion, what is the board's role in planning for long-term water supply reliability, and how do you envision your role in that process?
Well, as a member of the board, I think it's necessary to do first a long-term plan. It is my understanding that the existing long-term plan has ceased. So I think a first step would be to gather the other board members' thoughts as to what the long-term plan should be and how they can financially move forward with that long-term plan. Secondly, I think that the board will need to be very careful in who it selects as the general manager. And I believe it should be somebody with both business, finance, and some engineering background. So those two things together, I think, is what I would work on or want to work on as a new board member.
And now the audience. Any questions from the audience for Mr. Evans?
Okay,
Don't make me do the Jeopardy theme.
go ahead.
I might recommend, just so we get 3 questions on everybody, that if the audience doesn't, we'll take 2 out of the fishbowl.
You bet. Your
Okay.
call.
Okay, last
Oh,
chance.
Jerry has a question.
What would you do with the old Sierra Pines golf course that's laying there fallow, doing nothing except having an easement for the ditch going across?
Well, there's a thought of mine that would be what I would call Plan B. And Plan B would be to establish mini water storage locations. Dredging of Phoenix Lake, for example, should be done as soon as possible. Then there's the Metallic Reservoir Project, which helps, but even though it's a small footprint. But I would hope that could move forward, if possible, with the Twain Harte project to develop it into also a mini storage area. I think there's availability of both federal and state money for a smaller project versus trying to get 70 or 80 or 100 million to raise lines, even if that was feasible.
Okay, thank you. Last question from the fishbowl. What would be your plan to go after the $2.5 billion allotted for storage if Proposition 1 passes?
Well, I have a trouble with that because I have doubts that this county will be able to get a significant amount of that money. If I was sitting in Sacramento and I had to divvy up and deal out money, would I give it to a county with only, say, 50,000, or would I give it to some area that has $1 million or $1.5 million? So unless we can get the proper political interaction, both from our legislative representatives and from others that we can convince of our need for water storage money, I think that's going to be a hard uphill fight. I hope that answers that.
Thank you very much. You may be seated.
Okay.
Candidate number 3, Daryl Kittner. No Daryl? Okay.
Guess you got off easy.
No idea.
Okay. Candidate number 4 is Ron Koff. Ron? Oh, there you are. And Ron, you can go ahead when you're comfortable with your 2-minute opener.
Okay, my name is Ron Kopf, and I'm running for the 2-year TUD seat. As it was pointed out, there's one TUD seat that's a 2-year, and there's 2 4-year seats. I have been fortunate to live in Sonora for 13 years. I'm a graduate of Ohio State University, and my background is in land planning and landscape architecture. I have more than 30 years' experience working with local stakeholders, government agencies, consultants, community leaders, and the business community to identify and resolve planning issues and entitlement issues, working with viable solutions. As the Executive Director of the Tuolumne County Business Council since March 2011, I have worked with local businesses and our elected officials to facilitate a positive business climate and family wage jobs that enable more of our young families to stay in this county. This is my first time running for an elected office, but I have served on numerous committees and nonprofit boards since I've been here. I currently serve on the TUD Public Advisory Committee, the County Planning Committee, the Sonora BIA Board, the Visitors Bureau Board, and as a City of Sonora representative on the Airport Land Use Commission. The big issues that I think we need to work on with TUD are we need to develop an adequate and sustainable water supply. We don't have a lot of water rights here, if any, depending on who you talk to. We need viable water solutions that will require the county and all water districts to collaborate. This is not a TUD ratepayer issue alone. We are all in this together, and if we don't get adequate water supply and work with it as a county and as a city to pull that together, then we're going to be in trouble. We need a long-term plan to diversify our water supply, our storage and distribution systems, and we need adequate planning to pursue water infrastructure funding for the benefit of the TUD ratepayers.
Okay, Ron, thank you very much. You get to pick numbers 1, 2, or 4.
4.
Okay. Please tell us what you see as the infrastructure challenges for TUD going forward and how you would propose solving them.
TUD has a lot of infrastructure challenges going forward. We're a rural foothill community with a lot of elevation changes. We have numerous small water companies that are out there. Some are privately owned. Our water companies range from Gus's Steakhouse to Twain Harte to GCSD to TUD. So to try and figure out how all these these service districts and these water districts tie together is difficult. Also, you have water tends to flow downhill, but that's not the way it all gets pumped, so it's very expensive to figure out how to deliver it. We also have a lot of large lots. We don't have a lot of efficient communities that are built on smaller lots that have a little bit higher concentration of people with our more efficient development. So it's very expensive to provide water and sewer infrastructure to these spread out communities. So that's going to be difficult. But I think as we go forward, one of the things we've got to do is we've got to make sure we do avail ourselves of the funding sources. With the $7.4 million bond issue that's coming up, it's going to be critical that we work with our representatives, and our Senator, Tom McClintock, Berryhill, Bigelow, to make sure that we can avail ourselves of as much of this water as possible. Working through the IRWIP, the Integrated Regional Water Management Plan, we have been able to get a lot of money for our local supply, and we need to continue working with that program as well. But it's not going to be easy. It's expensive, and there is no single silver bullet that's going to do it. It's going to take a lot of small projects to get it done.
Thank you. And from the audience? Over there, Catherine.
Okay. Hi, my name is Laura Lee Brown Marcus, and my question is, do you think that because we're a small community, that if there was a big dream that we could have a statewide water plan, that we would benefit or not?
The statewide water plan is going to be difficult. I would hope that we would get our fair share, but when you start dealing with Southern California and San Francisco, it's going to make it very difficult. A lot of our politicians, their votes tend to go towards that area. When you look at the bond issue, that if it does pass, the $2.7 billion that's allocated for water infrastructure storage of that bond, it's already written that most of that money is going to go to 2 storage reservoirs, one north of us and one south of us. But there are going to be pieces of that infrastructure money that we can get a hold of. With the groundwater monitoring plan, I think that's going to impact the valley areas, and it doesn't impact us right now, but now that it's put in place, I think it very well could impact us down the road. When we've seen some of these water quality issues, it all starts out small and then it slowly grows and gets bigger. We're an area of watershed that provides water to San Francisco and Southern California, and I think that some of our Southern California neighbors and also San Francisco have a real responsibility to help us manage that watershed a lot better so that there is additional water sources for us all to share in.
Okay, thanks, Ron. And the last question, I'd like to have the answer to this. When the numbers don't match and expenses are higher than revenue, what do you propose to do?
That is the million dollar question, and everybody always says don't raise rates and you can't raise rates. And in the past, TUD hasn't raised rates very much. They've kept them flat. And unfortunately, some of the previous boards, what they did do is they used developer revenues that were paid on the permit fees to offset the operating expenses, and that kept the rates flat. And then all of a sudden they had to do these big rate increases at the end to try and play catch up. I think what we have to do is we have to operate that TUD as efficiently as possible. We've got to make it run like a business, but at the end of the day, if we need to do an increase, it needs to be small nominal increases that address it as we move along so that we don't get hit with a big increase down the road.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
We're done.
all right.
Okay, last candidate for the 2-year term is Mr. Jerry Morrow. And if you would, please begin with your opening 2-minute statement.
Thank you all for being here and your busy schedules tonight. It's really a pleasure to see so many people out. But, my father always used to tell me, Jerry, get involved in community service. Give your all what you do. For the last 60 years, that's what I've been doing. And I'm a 27-year resident of Tuolumne County. My wife is Barbara, and if I don't put my glasses on, I can't see. My wife's name is Barbara, and I have 3 children and 3 great-grandchildren. Presently, I'm serving on the Tuolumne County Planning Commission. As a commissioner, I've been on that commission for 13 and a half years, and I'm already making decisions for this county for the last 13 and a half years. I'm serving on the
The Planning Commission was, I was appointed by the Blue Ribbon Growth Committee and the Committee to Alternative Landfill Sites, and I was appointed to the Historic Preservation Commission as a commissioner also. I'm currently serving at that, for that commission. I was president of the California County Planning Commission Association, which represent 58 counties in California. The association deals with planning of water issues affecting California, and I had the great distinction of receiving Planning Commissioner of the Year in 2012. I was elected to the Sierra Village Water Board as a director in 1997, and I bring a lot of experiences from that water board, even though it was a very small water board. But we made decisions, and some of the decisions that we made, we was running out of water, and our tanks was leaking, our pipes was leaking, and we got together as a committee and decided to go ahead and build a new tank and replace some of those water leaks that we had. And it was a little bit of money that we had spent, but it had to be done, and the ratepayers agreed with us. Also, I was a past trustee of the Tuolumne County Board of Education in Tuolumne County, and I'm at present time a governor of the Sonora Moose Lodge, and I was also president of the Tuolumne County Taxpayers Association. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next question, sorry you don't get to pick a number. I'm going to give you the same question because it's an important one. Yeah, 1. There you go. Good job. In your opinion, what is the board's role in planning for long-term water supply reliability, and how do you envision yourself in that process?
Good question. Right now, we don't have a water plan in Tuolumne County for TUD board. We have actually, 5 years ago, there was a plan that was initiated for the TUD directors, and they never really fell through with that particular water plan. We need a water plan for the next 20 or 30 years. And if we don't have that plan, where are we going to do? And at our planning commission meetings, every time that we get a development that comes before us, I usually ask, where are we going to get our water? How much water do we have available for industrial, commercial, and residential? And the question that I always get from their board is, well, we're going to be out of water in 2035. And so with any long plan that we have, we don't have a plan. So my suggestion is, as soon as, if I'm elected, I would ask to go on a board and to make sure with the other commissioners or other directors to make sure that we have a plan for our water needs in the next 20 or 30 years. So that's my question on that.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone from the audience have a question? Yes, sir.
So if you set aside water storage and you walk around the community and talk to your constituents, the residential people as well as the business community, what are you hearing as far as what you think are the top 3 problems or issues with respect to the challenges that TUD faces, and you as a new board member, what are you going to do about it?
Well, I do walk around and I do ask a lot of questions about that particular subject. What are we going to do, as far as our water needs? I think the most important part, when all of us conserved as much as we did, we conserved 50% of our conservation. And we ended up being $1 million short because everybody decided to conserve. And I think the most pressing thing that I would like to see now is there's PG&E and management is negotiating to bring more water into Pinecrest. And that could be done this summer. PG&E could suspend power and generate it at Spring Gap Powerhouse, and that would allow more water into Pinecrest, and then we can take that water in Pinecrest and put it into Lyons Reservoir, and that would give us a good opportunity to have maybe 2 or 3 acre feet or 200 or 2,000 acre feet of water for our storage. And that would solve the problem right away if we have, and we know that we're going to be at another drought. So that would take care of that particular end of it, I think.
That's a water storage need.
Yes, it is.
What other issues do you hear in the community besides water storage and need for more
You know, that's, we have Phoenix Lake, and there's sometimes they talk about Phoenix Lake because we have a restoration plan that's going to happen in Phoenix Lake. And there's so much sediment that comes into that lake right now. We have at least probably 460 sediment that comes into that cubic feet. And if it was dredged, we could probably pick up maybe 350 acre feet of water. But it has to be dredged. And where does the money come from? And we'll know by the 31st of this month if we get a $3 million grant from that preservation. So I think that's a good feasibility that'll happen during that time.
Thank you. Last question from the Fishbowl. How many TUD meetings have you attended?
I have probably spent maybe 3 to 4 meetings at TUD. The reason that I decided to get in and run for the board is because there was so much controversy about people not getting the water issues that they wanted. And I think that particular reason that I decided to get involved because of TUD running for that board, because what they did, they asked us to go ahead and conserve, and we did. You know, my lawns dried up. We took buckets in our shower for more water that we would not usually use. And I think that when we heard that TUD said, well, there's enough water that we have to conserve 50%. Well, we really didn't have to, because I don't think they really told us the truth. That's my opinion. And so I felt that I needed to get involved and run for the board, and I have many experiences, and I think of all the candidates that's running for the 2-year, I have more experiences on different boards, and I'm making those decisions already. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, I think we're up for a 10-minute break, so there's refreshments in the back if you would like, and we'll call you back in about 10 minutes.
Well, yeah, we'll round it off to 650. Okay.
Don't leave.
6:50.
Stick around.
Yes.
We're going to go to the candidates' closing statements. As I said in the opening, the candidates will make their closing statements again by the competitive race, and they'll do it in the reverse order that they took questions. So I'll turn it over to Melinda.
So our first candidate up will be candidate number 5, which is Jerry Morrow. You have 2 minutes.
At our last forum that we had, I was the only candidate that talked really about water shedding management. And water shedding is so important, and basically it will give more runoff to our streams and our rivers. We need more thinning, we need more logging. That will create more water for our reservoirs, and also it'll create jobs into this county. So that's really important, and I hopefully that that can be done for water shedding. And if I am elected, I will look into that and set a committee up to look at water shedding. From treatment plants to pumping stations and storage tanks and pipelines that deliver our water were built decades ago. TUD storage tanks are old, and the condition of 61% of these tanks are currently below standards. The system must be updated and repaired. We need more storage to Phoenix Lake and need to look at dredging. If we dredge, the water supply will be increased by about 300 acre feet of water. Also, as far as our wastewater reclamation, we only have one reservoir, which is quartz, and that's for our wastewater, and we need another reservoir for wastewater reclamation. Now, we haven't had too much, as most everybody's aware, of our rainfall, but when we have our really wet years, we need another like quartz reservoir. I would form a committee to look into infrastructure, and I would look for grants from the state and federal government, and would bring in grant writers that are experienced in water issues. And hopefully that you may vote for me in November, and I thank you again for being here tonight.
Thank you. Number 4, Ron Koff. You have 2 minutes.
Good evening. I'm running for the 2-year seat on the TUD board because this recent drought has resulted in many negative impacts to our ag and tourism industry, our business and landscapes, the overall quality of life we enjoy as a foothill community. Conservation is important, and our community responded with 50 to 51% of conservation. However, I think that when we shouldn't be imposed with extreme conservation right off the bat. That should be a last resort. We need to have some sort of backup provision. It shouldn't be the first program that comes in place. Developing an adequate and sustainable water supply is critical for Tuolumne County residents and businesses, and a large part of our economy is based on tourism and agriculture, and these were 2 of the most heavily impacted areas with the current drought. Our climate is changing, and we're in a prolonged drought cycle. With a decreased snowpack, TUD needs a long-term plan to diversify our supply, storage, and distribution options. There are no easy or inexpensive solutions to this, and our short and long-term water issues will require that TUD work closely with county, city, and other water agencies. TUD's long-term water and sewer infrastructure needs to be addressed in the revised county general plan. It needs to tie in with the blueprint, and it needs to correspond with the way we're going with future planning in the county. Funding is always an issue, and TUD needs to continue to take an active role in our county and other water agencies to secure grant funding and available funding under the current drought, IRWIP, and the $7.4 billion water bond. The general manager is going to be a huge issue to pick up, and that's something that's going to take a main focus. An adequate water supply and distribution is critical for our quality of life and economic vitality. There's a lot of work to do, and I feel my planning and business background is well suited to work with TUD and the other agencies to find this. I will appreciate your vote on November 4th. Thank you.
David Evans. 2 minutes.
I would like to first express my commitment to the voters. I want to represent TU customers, the ratepayers. As a no conflict of interest candidate, I do not have some special interest group or individual behind the scenes dictating a certain TUD direction. I wish to add that I do not accept special interest campaign money. TUD is moving forward with some of the mini water storage for our short-term need, but I think we need to add additional mini storage to diversify our water sources and for future need. In addition, this effort may well help with firefighting by having additional water locations. And I'd like to add, I think both federal and state grants would be more available for the mini storage effort than it would be for a multi-million-dollar raising of Limes Dam, but I could be wrong. As a community, we need to work together. The TUD board must work together to solve problems. The board must also interact and respect TUD staff professionals. But just as important, community must not only be heard, but their concerns must be addressed. Thank you for this opportunity.
Michael Cummings. 2 minutes.
Well, again, I'm Michael Cummings, candidate for the 2-year position on the TUD Board of Directors. The theme of my campaign, as I had mentioned, is conservation and growth. A couple of things I've seen is that the we have a lot of water loss in our ditches. I've seen where we lose up to as much as 1/3 of our water as this flows through these ditches that were built back in the gold rush era, and due to water being lost through the soil absorption as well as evaporation. Also, we have our shallow lakes with a broad surface. Half of the half inch of water can be lost in a day just through in a hot day through evaporation. So ways to conserve water are to improve our current lake storages by dredging them deeper for more storage and less loss of water to evaporation. Upgrade many of the ditches to pipelines to cut down on water loss. Trained customers how to conserve, including the use of gray water for household irrigation, and have higher rates for water hogs. TUD must grow to meet the future demands for water, especially as the weather climate produces less snowpack and rainfall in the future. One way is to build, in conjunction with PG&E, more deep lake storage of water at higher elevations, and therefore cut down on evaporation. So funding TUD expansion can be done with investor capital. Utility bonds, annuity programs can be done to fund these improvements. Therefore, I would appreciate your vote and bring a better balance to the TUD board. Thank you.
Thank you. In closing, again, I would like to commend, and I think on behalf of everybody here and many that aren't here, thank the candidates for their commitment to run for public office. That's not a decision that anybody should, and I don't think does, take lightly. It's a tremendous responsibility that they're stepping up to. I would also like to thank the candidates for their excellent discipline on the time management during the debate or the event. It wasn't really a debate. For those of us in the audience, Connie, Randy, and myself who have been through these, that's not always the case, so it's very much appreciated. And then I would like to thank the public that came here tonight, that showed the interest in this race. I would invite you to take what you've heard back to your friends and let them know what these gentlemen stand for. I think they would appreciate it, and I think the whole county would benefit. And lastly, I'll just make an editorial, and it's a general editorial. I personally believe, as most of you know, I've taken a pretty strong interest in water issues in this county. I personally believe that this race is the most important race for any number of reasons that have been addressed up here that we've had in recent years. And I think the measure of that is the number of candidates that are interested in the water future in this county and have come out to run for office. So again, thanks to the candidates, thanks for you coming, and I'll turn it back over to Carl Dambecker.
Real quick, I know we're going to make it on time, but I'd like to thank you for joining us this evening. Be sure to study your notes and cast your vote on November the 4th. You have some little program things you hopefully made notes on. And importantly, very importantly, I'd like to thank our panelists, our sponsors, which are Blue Mountain Mineral, Neuro Boy, TC Facts, and Gold Rush News. But if you have any comments, please make them on our Facebook page, Gold Rush News and radio.com. I thank you for joining us, and November the 4th is an incredible opportunity for you to cast a vote for Tuolumne County. Thank you for joining us. Good night.